When the fuck are we going to learn to stop messing around with AI? Welcome back to the Entertainment Room, and thank you for joining me for my review of 2022's M3gan. When this film initially came out, I had absolutely no intention of seeing it. I think I just recently watched 2019's Child's Play, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth for these types of horror films. It also just looked too much like a cheesy teenage horror film. It was also released in January, which is typically your notorious dumping ground for bad horror film theatrical releases. But every time I noticed some okay reviews and people saying that they were surprised by it. It still took me a while, but I did recently watch M3gan for the first time, so let's talk about it. Originally, the theatrical release for this film was PG-13, and that version is still available, of course, but I liked it to view the unrated version on Peacock. PG-13 horror, it can be done really well, but oftentimes it is not. Insidious, actually, is one of my favorite examples of a great PG-13 horror film. You don't need frequent swearing or over-the-top gore or anything like that to make something scary, especially if the story is good and it's well acted, both of which being common problems in these types of horror films. I'm not certain what all they altered from the PG-13 M3gan, but my guess is that the kills in this unrated version show a little more detail with its more practical effects, and maybe a few more uses of the word fuck along the way. The kills aren't actually incredibly graphic at all, really. But I can see how some of them would kind of push the PG-13 rating too far. My opinion on gore in kill scenes is usually a minimal to moderate amount is typically just fine to get the point across. And here, from what little I read about the PG-13 version, a lot of M3gan's blows were delivered off-screen. I do think it packs more of a punch to see some detail. It kind of makes the attack feel a little more real, a little more personal, thus heightening the fear. Although most of the kills being done off screen just doesn't have that unsettling feel or a sense of danger. It simply feels like there's more of a true threat involved. If you see it happen, you kind of take the villain a little more seriously. They come across more dangerous, more terrifying. But anyway, so the plot of M3gan is that Gemma is a toy maker and ends up with custody of her 8-year-old niece, Katie, and she is struggling to bond with her. She has been working on a life-size doll called M3gan, and she decides to let Katie play with it, try and help her to get over this grief about the death of her parents, and to give her something entertaining to do while she is hard at work trying to meet a deadline for her toy company. For numerous reasons, this does not pan out well at all. Gemma is played by Allison Williams, who was the insane psycho girlfriend, Rose, in Jordan Peele's Get Out. It was pretty cool to see her in another horror film, and I like her here, overall. For the M3gan character, Amy Donald is the actress that provides a lot of the movements for M3gan, a lot of the stunts, and Jenna Davis provides the voice. Both are honestly pretty excellent at bringing this AI character to life. I'm going to give my overall thoughts on the film before touching on some spoilers. As a horror film, it has its moments. Overall, it falls a bit short, just a bit underwhelming overall. And it's just not my favorite aspect of the film, as far as what I feel like I got out of it. I do think the M3gan character definitely works as an intimidating and threatening antagonist. The film does rely a bit much on jump scares, and many of them are not particularly effective in my opinion. The commentary, though, on technology and its overuse and our over-reliance on it is definitely what I look back on the most when it comes to fond memories of this viewing experience. That's what kept me the most invested. There's also a fair share of intentional humor utilized throughout that landed surprisingly well for me. I didn't really notice anything being unintentionally funny or cringeworthy like I was expecting to witness more. The acting can feel a bit cheesy at times with its delivery, but it never really bothered me personally because I think I was just so invested in Katie and Gemma and their relationship, as well as just the overall storyline with M3gan. Earlier when I said I didn't care for the Child's Play reboot from 2019, it was mostly because I didn't feel like the updated Chucky was done well at all. They made his personality 100% robotic, 100% electronic, and this update on paper can work out okay, but ultimately you just get a villain with no personality whatsoever. What a lot of people, including me, enjoyed about Chucky and the Child's Play films, even when you had those sequels that were lacking, it was Chucky's sadistic personality, his quippy one-liners. His dark sense of humor made him as a villain. What we got in the reboot in 2019 was just generic robotic movements and bland phrases the doll was originally programmed to say. Not to mention he just looked fucking goofy. Holy shit. And they had Mark Hamill, for fuck's sake, as the voice. This was the only thing really that made me excited to watch that, because Hamill has proven himself as a voice actor, and they gave him absolutely nothing to work with. Just no way for him to make the character his own. But in M3gan, though, she had personality, and it was really cool the reasoning she could develop throughout. Constantly researching, constantly learning new things about emotion, about the world around her, and the people in it. So there's no telling what will catch her attention the most, or even, more importantly, what her interpretation of that new information will be. This film as a whole met my expectations, I would say. Based on what I was expecting, hearing some of the positive opinions, this is a solid one-time watch, maybe two. This is also one of the first films in about 45 years to earn a certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes on the first Friday of January. A release month, again, for horror that tends to worry me. So I thought that was a really awesome accomplishment, I gotta say. Just a heads up, I will hit a few spoilers now. So stop here if you haven't visited this film yet and want to. Again, the main concept that kept me invested throughout, if nothing else did, was the film projecting its opposition to our over-reliance on technology, whether it's our eyes being glued to the phone, or laptops all day, or buying the next extravagant gadget to make our lives a little bit easier. And also using social media, toys, or other forms of technology to handle our emotions for us, or to help us be distracted for a while. Katie's therapist warns Gemma about Katie's possible poor development down the road if she continues to play only with M3gan and not spend any time with other kids her own age. She says M3gan will become her only source of comfort and emotional support, and that is just simply not healthy for her. It also frowns on people like Gemma who give a child something to entertain them for a while, but then it turns into just less quality time with your kid or with your relative. Gemma also makes the mistake of telling M3gan to avoid the topic of death with Katie, thinking that'll help her more so she won't be as sad. And of course, Gemma apologizes to Katie for this later, as this did not at all help her grieve and process her parents' death as she should have. I thought the theme of grief itself was especially touching in this film. I didn't expect to really relate to many aspects of this film, but here I really did. One cool aspect to M3gan was her approach in one scene, trying to comfort Katie. And it was to have her recall a funny story about her parents. So she tells M3gan in front of the board members at the toy company, and M3gan ends up recording it and playing it back to her. And she tells her that she can ask her anytime to replay this memory to make her happy if she's feeling down. It wasn't a fix-all method, but it was a nice feature, a nice approach to making her feel better. Kind of like a futuristic journal entry. Katie's declined behavior was vital to the plot, with her always wanting to stay with M3gan and only learn from her and be homeschooled due to all the unlimited knowledge M3gan seems to have access to, even if it means not interacting and learning more about how to bond with other people. This obsession led to this really bratty and antisocial behavior. Again, the horror aspects aren't the most effective, but some of the kills were pretty well done, especially getting to see them more in the unrated version. The garden shed kill with the nosy neighbor was different. And of course, there's the iconic dance scene where Megan slices up Gemma's boss and her traitor coworker, who was trying to steal the company's secrets. One of my favorite comedic moments in this film was when Megan came back down the elevator onto the ground floor in a bloody elevator with the 2 dead men in it. And it took everyone down there a good several seconds to even begin to take note of the scene because they were all looking at their phones instead of looking up and taking in their surroundings. And Megan literally just walks out the door unnoticed. The final showdown with Megan and Gemma in particular was pretty awesome, at least with the heated exchange between Gemma and Megan. Just the vitriol and the anger that comes out of Megan about Gemma and about the world. And going back to what I said about not knowing how Megan will take in all this information she's constantly interpreting, there's a very nonchalant way that Megan talks about killing. She says, "Humanity kills every day to make things more tolerable. Why shouldn't I?" And to think that AI can interpret things like that, that is just fucking terrifying, to be honest. She says that she'll do whatever it takes to make her environment more secure. Because it's like, what will she do to make her environment more secure and appropriate in her mind? Elise, the Alexa equivalent in the film, ends up with a mind of her own throughout. And the final shot where she turns to look at the camera on her own is where things are left. There is a theory that there will be a kind of a Rise of the Machines sort of sequel. This film included a threat of another company stealing Gemma's files to Megan, so there's a possibility of like a Megan army somewhere down the road, and that could be an epic film, but I would like to see the story stop here. I think we kind of get the idea of where things can go. They would really need a pretty enormous budget to make a film convincing in that kind of way, I think. Plus, there have been so many similar ideas to that in the past. That'll take something really special to really set that film apart. I think the purpose of the story was served in this film already. And it could be great, again. I could be wrong. But I still have my doubts. So I'm going to give Megan a 6.8 out of 10. Thanks so much again, guys, for listening, and let me know what you think. Did Megan meet or exceed expectations, or does it just feel like your average January horror? Watching this film finally kind of got me excited for early November. I'm actually going with my wife at the end of Halloween Horror Nights in Universal Orlando, and I just kind of saw the Megan dance they did recently, and I thought that was kind of a cool addition to the side attractions as well as the haunted houses. So watching this film kind of got me amped up to go on that trip. But thank you guys again so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this review of Megan, and I'll see you all next time on The Entertainment Room.